Before I just open it for questions, and I'm sure you must be having lots of queries in your mind, I just wanted to repeat a logistics announcement which had been made earlier, which is that we have running tea and coffee outside. Okay, so at any given time you can walk out, carry a cup inside, you know, so three things, coffee, tea and water. All three things are running, so, you know, feel free to walk out any time and bring your cup along with you. Okay, so, you know, I think we've had an absolutely wonderful keynote panel here, and may I request for a few questions that people may have. Yes, sir. Yeah, mic is reaching you.
Hello, thanks a lot for giving me the opportunity. For wonderful presentations by Madam, Rajan and Jitendra. Now, three questions to all three panelists. First, Jitendra, you have been talking about the spectrum, quantum spectrum, etc. What's the need of the quantum spectrum that you have been talking about? What's the basic necessity? Okay, that's the first question. Please address that. What is the minimum quantum spectrum required for making 5G successful? Otherwise, it will die its death of the 3G. That's one. Rajan, you told the good story, but you didn't tell the bad part of the story. You said that I will tell the good news and the bad news. So what is the bad news? So I would like to listen from you. Third, madam, great job done in last 2-3 years. Wonderful, excellent. But again, still we have got a lot of hiccups. And how we are going to solve the hiccups, that's a major issue. Spectrum is one of the issue where all the government departments are still making their stake on that. The thing is that what we can offer using the 5G terrestrial system that satellite and others cannot offer. So there has to be balance for that. So what the government is going to do about it? That's again a major question what the industry is facing around. And again the pricing. Pricing is a political decision, not the decision to be taken by TRAI. Your answer.
Sure. Jitendra, shall we start with you? What is the kind of spectrum that would be required?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Dr. Saab. So, ITU had already concluded and they have come out with a requirement of minimum spectrum required in, especially in millimeter wave bands. And they have come out with, because it is all application-oriented requirements, so they have come out with certain numbers, and which I don't remember right now, but the way typically the industry is being asking for spectrum based on these calculations, and the way auctions are happening globally is 100 megahertz per operator in mid-band. If you're talking of 3.5 gigahertz or 4.8 gigahertz, there's 100 megahertz contiguous per operator. And if you're talking of millimeter wave bands, whether it is 26 gigahertz or 28 gigahertz, operators are asking for about 800 megahertz per operator in a contiguous manner. So this is the way things are rolling out in globally.
Wonderful. Rajan, the bad news.
Very quickly, what is the bad news? The bad news is that the industry is on life support systems right now, right? I think Aruna rightly said, if you look at NDPC 2018, we're talking about a minimum of $100 billion US, and I've often said that that's a conservative number. Unless we address some of the issues that are facing the industry from a financial perspective, the industry is going to be hard-pressed to make the investments in the march towards 5G and implementation of that.
And the unfinished agenda?
See, the one point that I was trying to make, and I would like to reiterate it here, is that currently the issues of spectrum are seen as interdepartmental issues between the Ministry of Telecom, the Department of Defense, Space, etc. But what is forgotten is that this is about how do you provide a general utility to 1.35 billion citizens. It is not really about Department of Telecom versus the Department of Space or Department of Defense and who needs to have. The point is that the Department of Space or the Department of Defense, their concerns should properly be ensuring adequate availability only for the strategic requirement. The rest of the spectrum is actually meant to be used to, provide services to the citizen. So I think unless we are able to convey this adequately, and unless the government recognizes that this is not about arbitrating between two departments, but making sure that this resource is available for the larger public good, I don't think we will be able to get the kind of spectrum availability or pricing that we are looking for.
Pradeep, do we have time for a few questions?
One last question, wait.
One question, okay.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Vivek Arora. I have three separate questions. First, Arunaji, on pricing part. Now, is the government looking at a differential pricing for low, medium, and high band? Because obviously, the utility of these three bands is different in terms of the use cases. The second thing is, what is the priority that we are looking at as a nation in terms of usage? When we are looking at setting up 5G, is it cellular based, which will be apparently in terms of number of users, the maximum number of users because migrating from 4G to 5G? Or is it the IoT world, which is device level, where the number of devices could be high, but in terms of the proliferation within India, it could be a larger time span compared to cellular? Or the third is the B2B segment. And the third question is, obviously, that Jitendra ji had mentioned earlier, in terms of the power that is required, more from a technical perspective, the distance, maximum distance that a millimeter wave takes up and needs a transmitter is 200 to 250 meters. Now that involves high power requirements, and also because of the very high frequency, the health hazards associated with that. So what is our government's outlook on that aspect?
On the last question that you raised about the power requirements and the health hazards, I will request both of them, because they are probably in a better position to respond to that. But on the second question that you raised, what is the priority of the government? Is it broadband to individuals, or is it IoT, or is it B2B? I think all three are important in the Indian context. Because it is not for government to really direct and say that this will be used only for IoT, or that this will be used only for broadband. Government's priority will, of course, first, as we have said in the policy, to universalize broadband. And that is why this low mobility large cell is also relevant, because we're talking about a range of 100 kilometers. But that said, I think it will have to be the applications and the use cases that will drive the proliferation of broadband. So I hope that has answered your question.
And the first question was differential pricing.
Differential pricing, unfortunately, I'm not able to comment at this stage, because I know that the pricing is still being discussed in government. I don't think any view has yet been taken, so we will have to wait.
Jitendra, on the power requirement.
Coming to the power question on power, I will take your attention back to the Sukanta's presentation, where he actually explained the technologies and 5 various methods which he explained. One of the key items there was a kind of beam forming, which will use same power which is allowed in normal cases, which we typically have in 4G, 23 dBm or 43 dBm based on base station. And you do beam forming using MIMO systems to ensure that you have constructive gain at the receiver. So that is how power is managed. It is not that power has to be increased for this special case. Thank you.
With that, okay, I still see if it is a quick question, please. Very quick question.
Yeah, it's not a question. I just bring some information to the table. I'm from the startup sector, and I'm from agri-tech. So since it was agri-tech was one of the focus areas for 5G, I just wanted to mention that every 9th agri-tech startup in the world is from India. There are about 450 plus agri-tech startups that are using technologies of 3G or 4G, what have you. And because they're not getting right price for the service they offer, many of them are going out. And I mentioned some source trees to 24 countries. Pharma ERP to 11 countries, crop into 30 countries. They're setting up an office in Netherlands to serve the European market. IntelloLab to 4 countries because they're getting better price for the service. Because here when they bring in the service, be it 5G or what have you, the farmer may not be able to pay. It includes remote charging of pumps or irrigation systems or what have you. So that's what I wanted to mention. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for sharing that information. Thank you very much. I think this has been fantastic views that have been given by each of the keynote speakers. So once again, thank you very, very much. Over to you, Pradeep.
Thank you. May I invite Mr. Amit Marwa, CMO Nokia. Sir, please come from that side. Udhar side. Please bring the mementos. Madam Aruna Sundarajan. Mr. Rajan Matthews. Mr. Jitendra Singh. Mr. Pradeep Gupta, can you? Okay.
I'm the host.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, please.
Thank you very much.